Open your iCoding stack for a second. Cursor Pro is around $20 a month. GitHub Copilot Pro starts around $10. Claude Pro gives you access to Claude Code for about $20, and the heavier plans go much higher. Use 2 or 3 of these, and suddenly AI coding is another permanent line on your monthly bill. But here is the strange part. A huge piece of what you are paying for is already sitting on GitHub. The agent loop, the terminal access, the file editing, the diff view, the code search, even the ability to choose which model does the thinking. I found 7 repositories that can replace big pieces of the paid AI coding stack. One works like a Git-native surgeon in your terminal. One can take a GitHub issue, edit the code, run tests, and work toward a finished fix. And the number one repo has grown to roughly 190,000 stars while supporting more than 75 model providers, including models running locally on your own machine. There is one catch. Open source does not automatically make the intelligence free. Connect Claude or GPT through an API and you can still pay for tokens. What these projects make optional is a subscription layer around the model. So let us count them down. Number 7, Aider. Aider is the old school entry on this list, and that is a compliment. It lives in your terminal, works directly inside a Git repository, builds a map of the codebase, edits files, runs linting and tests, and can automatically commit its changes. That Git first design is what makes it useful. If an agent touches 6 files and breaks something, you do not want to wonder what changed. You want a clean diff and an easy way back. Aider supports Anthropic, OpenAI, Gemini, DeepSeek, OpenRouter, Bedrock, Vertex AI, and local models through Ollama and LM Studio. The repo sits around 46,000 stars. Its best use case is controlled work. Make this function async, update every caller, run the tests, commit the result. It does not try to feel like an autonomous employee. It feels like an AI pair programmer that already understands how developers use Git. Number 6, Kilo Code. Kilo goes in the opposite direction. VS Code, JetBrains, CLI, planning modes, coding modes, debugging, browser automation, MCP tools. It tries to give you almost every surface in one product. Kilo advertises access to more than 500 models while still letting you bring your own API key or connect a local model. So instead of paying for one coding product that decides what sits behind the interface, Kilo lets you choose the brain yourself. You can plan a feature in architect mode, implement it in coder mode, then move into debugger mode when the tests fail. The repo is around 20,000 stars and the project claims millions of downloads. The trade-off is that Kilo has changed quickly. Its codebase has roots in the Cline and Root code family, while newer pieces move closer to OpenCode. It is powerful, but it is also the moving target on this list. Number 5, Gemini CLI. This one is here because it proves something important. Gemini CLI is open source, Apache licensed, and has more than 100,000 GitHub stars. It can inspect files, run shell commands, fetch from the web, use Google search grounding, connect to MCP servers, and work through a codebase from the terminal. That sounds perfect for this list. Then Google changed the service behind it. In June 2026, free individual access through Gemini CLI was moved away from the old setup, with individual users pushed toward anti-gravity CLI. The Gemini CLI code stayed open source, but using the Gemini backend became tied to enterprise access, Google Cloud, or paid API usage, and that is the lesson. Open source client does not mean free backend. You can own every line of the agent and still depend on a model provider that can change pricing or access later. Number 4, Goose. Goose started inside Block, the company behind Square, and in 2026, it moved under the Agentic AI Foundation at the Linux Foundation. It is also broader than a normal coding assistant. Goose comes as a desktop app, CLI, and API. It can edit code and run tests, but also research, analyze data, automate workflows, and connect to outside tools through MCP. It supports more than 15 model providers, including local models through Ollama. Imagine upgrading a dependency. A simple assistant changes the version number, Goose can inspect the repo, look up breaking changes, update the code, run the tests, and write the migration notes. The repo sits around 50,000 stars. But more tools also means more access. Shell commands, MCP servers, browser tools, credentials. Goose is a good reminder that once an agent can actually act, permissions become almost as important as intelligence. Number 3, Cline. If you use Cursor today, Cline is probably the easiest repo on this list to understand. It lives inside VS Code and JetBrains and makes the agent workflow very visible. Cline can inspect your project, propose a plan, edit multiple files, run terminal commands, use a browser, react to compiler errors, and show you the diff before the next step. That plan to act loop is the important part. You can ask it to inspect a payment service, explain what it wants to change, and only then let it touch the code. Cline supports major providers directly, hundreds of models through OpenRouter, and local models through Ollama and LM Studio. The repo is around 65,000 stars, and this is where the economics get interesting. The Cline agent layer is open source. You bring the model, use a cheap API or a capable local model, and it can cost less than a fixed coding subscription. Point it at an expensive frontier model and let it run autonomous loops all day. And the API bill can easily become larger. Free interface. Variable intelligence bill. Number 2, OpenHands. This is where we stop talking about autocomplete and start talking about an actual software worker. OpenHands began as OpenDevin in 2024 and has grown to roughly 75,000 GitHub stars. Give it a GitHub issue and the goal is not simply to suggest code. It can inspect the repository, reproduce the problem, modify files, execute shell commands, run tests, browse the web, call APIs, and work toward a completed engineering task. That puts it closer to the autonomous side of Claude Code and cursor agents than to classic Copilot. The core project is MIT licensed and model agnostic, but there is an important detail. Not every OpenHands product uses the same license. Its enterprise and cloud deployment pieces have separate terms. It is also heavier to run safely because autonomous execution means thinking about containers, credentials, secrets, and what happens when generated code actually runs. But if your goal is, take this issue and come back with a tested fix. OpenHands is one of the clearest open source attempts at that experience. And number 1, OpenCode. This is the repo that makes the title of this video work. OpenCode has grown to roughly 190,000 GitHub stars. It is MIT licensed, terminal first, and built around a simple idea. Your coding agent should not decide which model company you belong to. Its documentation supports more than 75 providers. Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, OpenRouter, Bedrock, Azure, Grokey, and many more. And if you do not want a cloud model, you can connect local endpoints through Ollama, LM Studio, Ollama.cpp, and other compatible services. You still get the core coding agent loop, inspect the repo, plan a change, edit files, run commands, test the result. But the model is your decision. Today, Claude, tomorrow, GPT, then a cheaper model through another provider, or something running entirely on your own hardware. And that is why OpenCode is number 1, not because 190,000 stars automatically make it the best tool. Stars measure attention, not fit. It is number 1 because it removes the largest amount of lock-in with the fewest caveats. Now step back. Aider is the Git-native veteran. Kilo is the feature-heavy experiment. Gemini CLI is the warning that open source does not guarantee a free backend. Goose is the general-purpose agent. Cline is the IDE-first alternative. OpenHands pushes toward the autonomous software engineer. And OpenCode gives you the widest freedom over the model behind the agent. So should you cancel Cursor, Copilot, and Claude Code tonight? Probably not. Paid tools sell convenience. They handle model routing, authentication, limits, integrations, support, and infrastructure. Open source moves some of that responsibility back to you. You manage API keys, you think about permissions, you choose the model. If you run locally, you own the hardware problem too, and local does not automatically mean better. A tiny model can cost almost nothing per request and still waste an hour because it cannot reliably edit a large codebase. The cheapest agent is not the one with the smallest bill. It is the one that gets the task right without creating 3 new tasks for you. That is the real shift here. AI coding did not suddenly become free. The subscription simply stopped being the only way to get the workflow. You can own the agent, choose the model, and pay only for the pieces you actually want. If you live in Git in the terminal, start with Aider. If you want to stay inside your IDE, try Cline. If you want an autonomous issue-to-fix experiment, look at OpenHands. And if you want the broadest freedom over what model powers everything, OpenCode is the obvious place to start. 7 repositories, hundreds of thousands of stars, and one big change in how AI coding is being sold. Open source does not always make the model free. It makes the layer around the model yours. If that saved you a subscription, or at least made you question one, subscribe. Code Unpacked takes apart the tools and systems developers are actually using. And I will see you in the next one.